Hello bakers, welcome to the DoughDr Live, and it's Saturday again. I don't know about you guys, but didn't this week just fly by? It was shockingly fast. Well, I am glad that it's Saturday again, even if it came quickly, because I'm very, very excited about our show today. We had some great questions come in over the week that I can't wait to dig into. But first, I'm kind of going to wait until a few more of you fall in, because I had two questions last week that I did not get a chance to answer. And so I want to take care of those right away. Then I'm going to talk about some really beautiful bakes that I was tagged in. And so we can have a little shout out to our bakers. All right, so first off, last week, and actually I'll take this one on in demo. One of our bakers asked about when we are making biscuits or pie dough, any kind of a recipe where we're cutting fat into the dry ingredients, what's the best way to handle the butter? Do you cut it into chunks, she asked me? Do you grate it? Or do you smear it? And the answer is, I'm a big fan of chunks, small chunks of butter, and you're going to see that in today's demo. Back in the 80s, and I really feel, I see some bonjours in the comments, so bonjour to you guys. And welcome to everyone who's just joined. So let me grab my thought. I really feel that in the 80s, it became super popular to grate and freeze fat before adding it to pie crust. Now, I usually, because I'm such a nerd, as you know, I know the genesis of ideas like that. But that one I don't know. The problem is, when you grate fat, it has to be super frozen, not just a little frozen, but super frozen before you begin to mix it into the dry ingredients to create, because what we're making, this is the category of cut-in doughs. You know, we're cutting that fat into the dry ingredients, adding liquid, moving forward, making flaky, flaky, flaky product. This is when flaky is an absolute good thing. Flaking in baking is totally fine. Maybe not in life, but definitely in baking. So I wanted to answer that question. And then JG asked a question last week, and I totally blew past it. And as soon as I logged off, I was like, oh my God, I missed that question. And the question was there a good online bread baking specific school that I could recommend? And the answer is yes. Now I have to say, disclaimer, you all know that I work for Escoffier Culinary Schools. I'm one of their online culinary instructors, and Escoffier does not have a specific bread baking program. So I just want to clear that up because I don't want to seem disloyal at all. We have a great pastry program, so I'm going to give a plug that way. But as far as specifically bread, there is one online through the French Pastry School in Chicago, and it's very extensive, and it's available through ruxbe.com, Rouxbe, and I looked through it, thorough, really, it's self-paced, but there is a strict timeline of, I think, 6 months. You have to get the work done, and I do know for you bread bakers like JG who might be interested in such a course, that they have 40% off their classes for Black Friday. You heard it here. So again, I think that is the best concentrated online bread baking program to date. And as again, that's the only one that I've seen that is so comprehensive. You could certainly, when you came out of that, you'd be a great bread baker. So that's my recommendation, JG. Look it up. Any questions? If DM me if you need the deets, I can give you the deets. And maybe one day Escoffier will have a specific bread baking program and I can plug that one. All right. So now moving into this week's questions. I don't know if Patty, our baker Patty, is on the show yet, but she sent this question, went on for paragraphs. But don't worry, I will be nice and concise. It is a question you've all had. All of you. I know it. Because we make pies, right? Oh, by the way, while I'm going through this question, I want to know, when you're baking if you bake for Thanksgiving, if you bake pies for Thanksgiving, when do you bake those pies? Is it Tuesday night? Is it Wednesday night? When do you, or earlier, put it in the comments, when do you start your Thanksgiving Day pie baking? Or do you just buy your pies? That's totally fine as well. But I want to know when, because I'm thinking I have a plan, but I need to know the when. Okay? All right. So back to Patty's question. And I know you've noticed it. You probably didn't say anything. I know you didn't say anything because you're all nice people. Okay, I'm getting answers. That's great. Keep those answers coming. I'm going to recap that at the end. Okay, so Patty asks about raw dough in pies. Specifically, not the sides, not the crusts, but in between the filling and in between the filling and the crust, there's often a layer where that dough is raw. And what she's wondering, this is the first part of her question, how that bothers her. And we know it doesn't bother most people, and because a lot of pies for Thanksgiving look just like that. So she wants to know the workaround. How do you get around that? Well, specifically, we see it a lot in custard pies. And you may not think of it, bakers, but a pumpkin pie is a custard pie, okay? So it sets up, there's no breathing room for that bottom crust to bake directly under that pie. It creates a seal. So here's the thing. The only way to get around that is to partially bake that pie crust before filling it. And it needs to be baked until it's set. And if there's a little caramelization, a little golden brown action going on in that pie crust, all the better. The trick is not to partially bake the crust so dark that by the time you add the filling, because for example, most pies, you're looking at a 45-minute bake for a pumpkin pie that's this size, and that's conservative. It has to bake until it jiggles like Jell-O and doesn't ripple like soup. And even at 325 to 350, because we usually bake our custards at 350, but normally 325, but our pumpkin pie will go up to 350. It's tricky. So we don't want the crust to get too dark. So you have to be careful. But Patty, that's the workaround for not having that raw streak of dough, that raw layer of dough under your fillings. You can also do it for fruit pies if it bothers you. Now I have a hack that I've talked about before, and to piggyback onto this class, next week we're going to assemble a pie, but that's where underneath my fruit filling, like apple, I'll put either unflavored, they have to be unflavored, breadcrumbs, or crumb topping, like a streusel. So that's my hack. Doesn't always work perfect, but it does soak up some of the juices so we have more of a bake on that bottom crust. And I've mentioned that before. I actually found that in my grandmother's cookbook from the 1940s. So that's what they were instructed to do when she went to not a culinary school, but a cooking school in Chicago. So, all right. Then Patty asked, why are some pie crusts that people bake golden brown and why are others pale? Like they've never seen any heat. What is it? Couple of things. It's if there is sugar in the dough, like the one I'm going to demo today has a small percentage of sugar, then that sugar will caramelize during the bake and it'll help give the pie crust a beautiful golden brown crust. Another factor, especially maybe you're making a savory pie like a quiche and you don't want any sugar in that pie crust, but I'll tell you bakers, low percentage of sugar, you don't taste it. It's not gonna, we gotta really creep up there with adding sugar to taste that sweetness. A small percentage you won't taste, and it aids in the caramelization. So that's a factor. Also, oven temperature. Now, if you're baking one, like I just said, for a savory pie crust, then, and you don't want any sugar, like no way, Colette, no way, no way, no way, then you've got to at least start that pie crust at a higher temperature. Because without that sugar, we need a high temperature to caramelize the starches in the flour in the dough so that we get that beautiful golden brown crust. That doesn't mean you need to stay there if you're worried about burning your pie, but you gotta start there. It's the only way. So Patty, excellent. I'm looking at her post right now, and I think I hit it. I think I answered all her questions. Patty, if you're in the audience, give me a thumbs up in the comments, or if I missed anything, I don't think so, but that's it. One last thing about pie crust. Depending on the type of pie we make, we're doing a fruit pie, we usually go for a more flaky pie crust. But if we're deep into custard pies, we do want to cut that fat a little bit finer so we create a matrix that is finer in texture and holds that custard more into suspension, like in suspension, than a more open flaky pie crust, which is great for fruit pies. Apple, cherry, blueberry, we can go on and on. All right? And I just want to shout out, and again, one day the DoughDr is going to be high tech. I'll have screens behind me and I will hit the screen and we'll see we'll see our baker's beautiful bakes from the week before. And so, but I'm just going to describe Sherry F. She sent some gorgeous tiramisu cupcakes. I have to apologize to Sherry. I didn't see it right away, but I just want her to know that they were, and you guys to know they were really beautiful. I think they had a gorgeous mascarpone frosting. And then Cyrus just posted, our baker Cyrus, posted a beautiful coconut bread that had an absolutely gorgeous golden brown bake. So kudos to our bakers. And then Salty Sweet Bakes, who I believe is doing a baking program and is in the chocolate portion, posted some gorgeous chocolate work that was painted with yellow and blue to remind us that our baking brother and sisters in Ukraine are still not out of the woods. They're not close to normal. So Salty Sweet Bakes, Those were gorgeous, amazing temper, amazing. And one more thing, Emerald Cupcake, Los Angeles, keep doing what you're doing. All I see is beautiful work. And all I see is beautiful work from all of you. But remember, as I always say in the close, if you don't tag me in your bakes, then I don't see them. So please tag me. All right, so let's go. That's everything, bakers. I did not forget a thing. Don't you love how we're so tech? But I got to be old school with a notebook to make sure I hit everything I need to hit. All right, last week on the show, it was all about learning to laminate. And here's the thing, really quick. So you all know I teach croissant making like crazy. I've probably taught conservatively 30,000 people how to make croissants between Craftsy and Sur La Table and culinary school. Conservative estimate. At least I'd like to think that many. Well, I thought about it, and let's take some baby steps. And that's what we're doing in this series. Last week we did biscuits, and this week we're doing pie crust. Now, we talked about Thanksgiving. You know, a lot of you are going to make pies for Thanksgiving, and I'll come back to when you're baking. But I'm going to encourage you to practice. I think we hit Thanksgiving week, and it's like hitting a wall. The grocery shopping, the turkey, whatever is your entree. I got to go in the fridge. Hold on. Hold on a second. And the freezer. Yeah. Okay. So totally, it's just mayhem. Oh my God. You know, and you want to shop early. I made the mistake years ago of going to a Whole Foods Thanksgiving Day with Chef Daniel, and people were at each other's throats over celery. I mean, it was like really, really insane. So get your shopping done early, have a good prep list, and practice these pies. Ooh, just a quick comment, I gotta interject like a commercial. Pistol Packing Mama is thinking of making a suet pudding for Thanksgiving. Wow, her grandma's recipe from England. That sounds awesome. Okay, so now back to this pie crust and laminating. So I want to cover a couple things, and I'm going to sound like a broken record by the time we get to Thanksgiving, but that's okay. I think you guys like that. So I have all-purpose unbleached flour, and I'm adding salt, and I'm adding sugar. Now I gotta tell you guys, my bowl is too small, so stay right there. You need a big one. This, no, this, yes. Okay? So let's recap. Now last week I showed you how to do this in the mixer, but this week we're going to do this by hand. So we've got flour, sugar, and salt. And Patty, it's just a little bit of sugar to aid in the caramelization. Okay. Get yourselves one of these hard-sided, not silicone and wobbly bowl scraper, and we're going to use the curved end in the bowl. Tap, 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 tap. This recipe, which I'm going to post on Monday, has a combination of shortening and butter. This is organic vegetable shortening that I weighed out and froze, because shortening breaks down so much. It breaks down really quick, and our butter does not. So we need this to be as cold as possible, all right? And the butter is cubed, not grated, not smeared, and it's going in. And look at the size of the chunks, bakers. Let me grab one for you. They're just small little 3/4 by 3/4 inch chunks. And you're going to start with the butter first. And you're just going to, it's ice cold, and you're just going to kind of chop it in to the flour. And here's the thing. What screws us up with pie dough, especially if we only bake pies, if we're doing it all the time, then you get really used to it. But if we only are faced with it a few times a year, holy cats, what can go wrong? That's why I'm here. All right, so chopping this up until you can see the pieces. I'm not getting my hands in there. I know that would be great, and it would just really break up super fast. But butter melts at 84 degrees, and I'm hoping I'm 98.6. Last time I checked, I'm still alive. Yeah. Yep. So my little hands would melt this butter. Don't want to do that. I am just going to pick it up to show you that they're good sized pieces. All right. And now I'm going to add my frozen shortening. And it loves to clump together, so I'm just going to quick like a bunny break it apart. And then I'm going to chop it in. Now, you hear this all the time, that, you know, once you get your butter in, we're going to add water. And the water is something called a variable. Any of you in the audience who went to baking school or culinary school, you heard this over and over again. Your favorite, you know, even on YouTube people say this. On Craftsy they say it. They've been saying it for 100 years. Well, what's the catalyst? What part of this process is going to influence if I need more or less water? And the answer is cutting in the fat. If you cut in the fat until the pieces are super small and you've literally banged out all the water in the fat, you will need less water. If you keep the pieces about the size of what I'm going to show you, then the water in the recipe, which I'm going to drop on the website and Instagram on Monday for your one pie practice, it's going to be perfect. Isn't that what we want? We don't want to struggle. All right. And then periodically, you know, you want to just kind of fluff it. It's a new baking term, fluff it. All right, cool beans. So I've got everything's coated with the flour. My shortening pieces are smaller than my butter pieces. And my biggest butter piece is that big, just like that, okay? So now I'm going to add the secret ingredient, and that is a small amount of apple cider vinegar. So don't panic, bakers. If you don't have apple cider vinegar, you're going to use lemon juice. We're going to sprinkle that over the top. That was everybody back in the day. That was their secret tender pie crust. That's what they pulled out of their back pocket. And I'm just kind of like tossing it in, because the acid in the vinegar cuts the gluten strands. It literally cuts them in half. They cannot form, and so by default, the pie crust is flakier. Now this is perfectly measured out ice water, and all of it, whoops, except for the part that went on the floor, is going in. Now, I'm going to take this tool, I'm going to work to camera, and I'm mashing, and I'm mashing. You know, maybe put your, put your music on. You want some good mashing music to get you going in this process. Put it in the comments. How many of you listen to music while you're baking? Or is it your favorite podcast? Let us know. All right, so now, look at this. This is where it's getting scary. It's still dry. What are we going to do? Well, most of the liquid is stuck on this thing, this bowl scraper. So, I'm grabbing, well, this is a palette knife. I'm scraping this, and I'm going to go at it again. And as it becomes a cohesive dough, I get more aggressive. I'm really pushing that liquid through. And then, it's a lot of and thens. When it looks like this, I am going to get my hands in there. Woo! I see some comments about lard, and I'll get there. I'm going to get my hands in there, and I'm going to fold this over. What I want to do is make sure, and I'm using this part of my hand, so I don't mean to be a hypocrite, like, gee, chef, you said no hands, but I'm at the very end of this process. I have not added any more water. So now you guys understand that it's all about cutting that fat in. And not too much, not too little. Welcome to the Goldilocks School of Baking. Okay? Alrighty. I can live with it. Look at that. Cool beans. Alright, now what we're going to do, so it's a little dry on the surface. Usually where things, here's the thing, if it's a little dry, I can fix it. But if you add too much water in the bowl, there's no fixing it. You cannot add flour and fix it. It won't work. So what we're going to do, and here we are in our learning to laminate portion of the class, I'm going to roll this out, and I have my ruler so I can give you a dimension, and I'm going to give it a couple of folds, just like we did the biscuits for last week, and watch this transform. Now, I did have a little bit of a spill, so I've got to wipe that off, and you're going to throw just a titch flour down. And here's the thing with flour. This is actually something that we say when we teach at Escoffier. We want to work in the flour. We want to work with the flour, not in the flour. So you notice this is just super light dusting. Okay. Alrighty. Oops. I just saw a chunk of butter on my bowl scraper. I'm going to grab, you all have your favorite rolling pins, but I like a double-handled, good leverage rolling pin. And I'm just going to tap on this. And if it sticks, flour the pin. You guys have your favorite ways of dealing with your rolling pins. You can flour the product, or you can flour the pin. Okay? Now it's going to be rough as guts. Look at this. It's totally rough. And it's not perfect like croissants. So my croissant bakers, if you're having a little mini stroke, please don't, because you'll see I'm going to fix it. Okay? All right. So we are about 12 inches, and you might need to scrape. You're going to fold. You can fold the top over, fold the bottom over. Okay. Now we're going to give this a quarter turn. More flour. And look, it's more rectangular. And I'm going to roll it out again to about 12 inches. Now this dough has transformed, and we did not add any extra water at any point, okay? And now I'm about 12 by 6. Be consistent. You started at the top before, top again, bottom over, last one. It's always, well, I shouldn't say always, but I think 3 works great. And after I fold it, I give it a quarter turn. And this very last one, I'm going to come in and I'm going to take, can you see how I'm straightening? I'm looking into the camera so I can make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing. I am squaring off the corners and straightening the sides. Okay, top over, bottom over. We have this package of dough, which I recommend. You're gonna, if you want to bake along, because next week we'll fill the pie and finish it, I recommend that you make this sometime over the week. Again, I'm going to post the recipe on Monday, and then you're going to freeze it, all right? But we want to avoid, professionals always avoid freezing big, thick hunks of dough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just flatten it to about 3/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to wrap it in plastic wrap, put it in a freezer bag, which I keep reusing over and over, and I'm going to freeze it until Friday night, and Friday night I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. Now, bakers, would you like to see the sexy layers that built into our dough? I'm going to show you. Look at that. Look at all the layers. Totally, it's pretty cool. I'm very excited. All right, so what I'm going to do, though, because we're going to finish the show, is I'm just going to set these off to the side, and I will wrap them when we're done. But oh, great, I've got some questions. Let me just answer questions, see the comments, and we will wrap the show. And I really hope that over the week you make a batch of dough so that after next week's show, you can go ahead and make the pie. And I will post the filling recipe, everything on Monday. Okay? So some questions. JG is asking, what organic shortening do I use? Well, the one that I find at my local Whole Foods is from Spectrum. Not to be confused with Spectrum TV, Spectrum shortening. Actually, I think they make a lot of products, but Spectrum, easy to remember. All right, let's see what we've got. So I asked about when you bake for Thanksgiving. I've got, most of you are telling me the day before. The day before. Alrighty. Okay. Okay. That's very, very helpful. Super, super helpful. And then PLZ is saying, my mom was responsible for bakes in her farming family of 13 plus farmhands. She always used lard and taught me to do the same. So PLZ uses 50 lard and 50 butter. I'm sure it's absolutely delicious. I would freeze the lard and you'll get even, you get lovely flake with lard. But if it's super cold when you cut it in, that'll help. Just like shortening. Just like shortening. And then back to music. No music. Podcast. Yes. No. Pistol Packing Mama likes quiet. JG says it depends, so it depends on your mood. I've really fallen in love with podcasts. I love learning, all the learning, or just laughing, because some of them are just hilarious. So I agree though, JG, it depends on your mood and also what you're working on. All right, everyone. So I think I hit all the questions. We made the flaky pie dough. You saw it evolve from kind of a hot mess in that bowl and then to a cohesive dough. And now it's really a lovely flaky package. So super exciting. One last time, I'm going to say, I know when I repeat myself, third time, look for the recipe for the one practice pie on the website on Monday, and then also on Instagram. And then we'll meet again next week, and we will finish and finesse this pie, which is going to be apple. All right? Any questions, let me know during the week. Any baking problems, let me know during the week. Tag me in your bakes, bakers, so I can talk about, for now, it's all talk, but soon, hopefully video, your beautiful work. Thank you so much for joining. Have a marvelous day. Bye. Happy baking.